I'm Beth Guckenberger, and this is the Reckless Faith Podcast. We're back with my friend Rob Hall.
Every time you introduce me like that, it's just like, bam!
It is. You are my friend, and here we are.
Here we are. Beth, it's good to be with you.
Thanks.
Day 6 of Reckless Faith, a 40-day journey to saying yes. We've been through yes to being still, yes to questions, yes to a new direction, yes to sacrifice, yes to healing, and today, the title of the chapter is, Do You Love Him? Yes to Testify. Now, I know the story that you tell on day 6, I needed to take a breath every couple of whiles. It's a pretty heavy story, but the underlying concept that's in that story is kind of being available to having your day interrupted on behalf of someone else. Do you got a little bit lighter story that maybe might resonate with people like me who might not encounter the kind of story you tell on day 6?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me in that story, what was so compelling looking back on it was that I didn't have the answers to the questions that she came to my door looking for. I just made room in my life for her to be in it and let God do what he was going to do through me for her. And Todd and I moved into this neighborhood of new construction. We were one of the first houses to be built in there. And so in my defense, for the first couple years, we didn't have stop signs and all the kind of normal things you have. We were just a big field with houses under construction. And I used to zip up the street to my house and park exactly where I always had and at the speed in which I wanted. And as the houses began to populate the neighborhood, they began to put more things to control the flow of traffic. And one night I was coming home from picking up my son Tyler, and I had the radio on, I was on the phone, I was almost home, and I blew through a stop sign that was really one driveway away from mine. I had seen them put it in earlier that day, so I guess I knew technically it was there, but I'd driven that road up.
They put a stop sign like in that day?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like, bang, new stop sign.
And later that night, I just wasn't in the habit of stopping at it, and I flew right through it, and I could kind of hear that someone was yelling at me, but when I pulled in the garage and I looked at my son, I'm like, did you just hear someone yelling at us? Go in the house. I'm going to go see what that is. And I go outside and I ask another neighbor, did I make that up, or were you yelling at me? And they said, no, it's somebody new who had moved in. He was been here all day helping people. Traffic safety is a priority for him. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't even met him yet. And I've already offended him. And I go in the house and I say to the kids, like, hey, all of you drivers, make sure you stop at the new stop sign, because I just offended one of our neighbors. I don't even know him yet. And what do you think I should do? And they, had some suggestions. And then I went to bed that night not really knowing what to do, just knowing I gotta fix what happened. Mm-hmm. In the morning I woke up and I thought, well, in much of the same way of this day, like what is it that I'm already doing that I can use who I already am? And I thought, gosh, I pretty much make chocolate chip cookies every single day. Like I make a batch of them every day. I have a jillion children. They eat them all throughout the day. Make whatever decision and assumption and judgment you'd like to, but we do make chocolate chip cookies almost every day, and they share them with their friends. And I thought I'll make him some cookies. So I got on Pinterest and I printed off these like little stop signs and I put them on top of all the cookies and I made them in a box. And I walked over and I knocked on his door, and he opened the door and he didn't recognize me because, the day before I went flying by. And so he didn't recognize me. And I said, hey, my name's Beth and I live in that house over there. And last night I went through the stop sign and I think I offended you. And I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. And he definitely wasn't expecting that. He wasn't expecting my apology. He wasn't expecting my cookies. And we stood on the front porch of his house and talked for almost an hour. And I think that it's okay that I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, I think that's part of this yes piece of it. It's like, I'm just going to testify, like, this is who I am and this is how I feel and this is how I carry, and hello. And the rest of the conversation, really, I left up to God. And I think now we have this funny little relationship. Every time he stops, he honks to make sure I saw that he has stopped. And he often jumps out of the sidewalk onto the lawn when he sees me driving, because, we have this funny little exchange. And I hope that those exchanges turn into meaningful conversations that God will use one day to move the needle in his life in the same way that they did for this girl.
Buried in day 6, I want to point something or pull something out, because I think it's really interesting. And if I were about to engage in the action step or the one that you took with your neighbor, it might make me stop. Mm-hmm. And so there's this paragraph you have at the end of your story on day 6, and you talk about shame. And shame often is that little voice in our head that says, oh, they're going to dislike you, or you're going to embarrass yourself, or you're going to do these things. How do you overcome that voice in your head? This is a short podcast, right? We've only got a minute or so, but how do you overcome that voice that would make me not engage in the action step that's on today's action step, day 6?
Yeah, I think that I definitely had some mental gymnastics to get over. Like, what if he's like gluten-free? Or what if, like, what if...
I didn't think of that one.
Like, what if he, what if there's other things about us or our household that bothered him, and this is the moment now he can take to air his, like,
what if he doesn't accept my apology? What
Yeah.
if?
Yeah,
Or
there's a
you'll
lot-
look embarrassing, or you'll be something.
And I think that there is this like little self-talk you have to do that just says the result of obedience is not the goal. Like the end, I'm not in charge of what happens. I'm just in charge of the step towards what happens. And this is my step towards what happens.
I love that. So today's action step, day 6, is while you're out today, look for someone who is different than you. Could be their age or color or nationality, ethnicity, whatever. Make eye contact and smile at them. If appropriate, initiate a conversation with a simple observation or greeting. Take a moment to wonder about their day and experiences and say a prayer that you might leave a good impression. For some people, that's going to sound really simple. For other people, that's going to be terrifying.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you? Do you have another story of just this action step that you took with this in mind?
Yeah, I was thinking about how for so many years living as an expat in another country, I was the one that was different. And it always meant a lot to me when people took a moment to try to understand my language or to even try to understand who I was and where I was coming from. And I think if you're a listener, before I tell you what I did, if you're a listener and you're like, this is really easy, then you know how to step it up. You know what the next level is. Invite that person to your home or invite them out to a meal. Like if this is really terrifying to you, then just start with the eye contact, but be on the lookout for someone whose life is other than yours and try to build a bridge towards it.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about today's challenge is it should feel a bit reckless, right? So for some people, a bit reckless is I'm going to make eye contact with a stranger and smile. But for some people, that'll be chickening out. Make it a bit reckless. Like, what's the next thing that you can do to challenge yourself to live a more reckless faith?
Yeah, and it's about momentum. At that point, it's about momentum. So I also have a neighbor who has a different lifestyle than I do, and I think that they are aware of the fact that they are other. And so I was out for a walk with my husband, and we stopped and made small talk. And it wasn't all that exciting of small talk, but the next time I saw her in her car, she waved to me with some aggressiveness. And again, it doesn't mean like, okay, and now I went through the Bible and the Roman road, and now she goes to my church.
Yeah.
I mean, of course I want that to be the result.
Sometimes testify is just make a good impression. And as you said earlier, it's about saying yes to the activity, not to the
It's about,
outcome.
momentum,
Yes.
spiritual momentum. Get it going.
Great conversation. We could go on and forever, but this is a short thing. What are we gonna do? Hey, if you have a reckless faith, a 40-day journey to saying yes, we hope this podcast keeps you encouraged and focused, and hopefully having meaningful conversations like Beth and I are having with God and with other people. If you're here and haven't yet gotten a copy, you can find it on Amazon. Or for the book and other resources, visit backtoback.org/40 days. That's back2back.org/40 days.
I just want to thank you for being on this journey with us towards a more reckless faith. And until next time.